And did you notice she come to draw water? Not that she was thirsty at the time, but she come to draw water for the future. We need to draw water for the future. We need to come to the well every day, many times a day. We need to come to the well. Now, we're talking about a spiritual well there. Now, in the hot weather like we got now, you may come for a water source. I keep a little cooler with frozen water on the outside and fresh water on the inside. Well, if I've froze it lately, then I can even thaw out the frozen water and drink it. Boy, you talking about good now. It's real cold. But them 4 little bottles will keep the other 4 in my thing all day and keep up my lunch all day. I've went out on 95-degree days and have a sandwich in there and not get a chance to eat it or go to a restaurant or something and then come back and take that same lunch back out and eat it the next day. And it was still good, still cold. Still got ice in the outside 4 bottles. So that's a cheap refrigerator there if you want to use it like that. But you notice that Christ brought up a subject by asking for a drink. He did that in verse 7 here, the last part of it. He said to the lady, now we're talking about, now Christ knew her, but he'd never met her. You say, how'd that happen? Well, he knew her before she was ever born. He knew every detail in her life. He could have told her a whole lot more than what he told her. But he told her just enough. And he used a give me a drink to get her attention and to start a conversation. Now that's a good way to witness. We need to learn from what the Lord has done here in witnessing. You don't always go, you're going to hell if you don't change your ways. If you do that, you've done turned them off.
Yeah.
They'll reject you real quick. But he's asking her for a drink. Now, she's got a problem with him asking her for a drink. She's got a problem with him even being there. He's another man. She's had 5 and living with 1 now. Men has not treated this lady very good. Now, she could have had problems. Like I said the last time, she might not have been able to cook. And she might have turned the egg over too many times. Anything you could divorce your wife for. If you didn't like her, you could divorce her in the Jewish. And if she had any problem at all, maybe the reason she was divorced, or probably divorced or left, I don't know how many she lived with, and he said you had 5, and now you're just living with 1, which you assume she was married to the 5. But as I mentioned the last time, guess who brought up the divorce papers?
You said the husband.
The man did. Sure did. He's the one that, I don't think a lady back then could even initiate a divorce. Now she might, here's probably the only way she could do it. Do enough bad things, he wants to get rid of me. But then she's got a big problem. Because back then, the women depended on the men a lot more than they do now. A woman now can go out and get a job and survive on her own. Back then, that wasn't so.
No.
And back then, they didn't have a wardrobe full of dresses or suits that they could put on. Probably in a lot of cases, what they had on their back, they had to wash that night if they wanted to clean them the next morning. And we've never experienced that, so we don't. Maybe some of you have in the past, I don't know, but we just don't experience that. But let's learn from the Lord here and use some of His techniques on winning somebody to the Lord. And He definitely won this woman. Yeah. Now, He had a tool that we don't have. He could look down into the future and look into the past and bring up both of them. He can do that.
We don't need that.
And no, I'm glad I don't have it. I'm glad I still got to figure out. Now, you'd be surprised how much of the future you can predict if you get to thinking about it. Now, I'm going to give you just one example. Most of you's got cars that'll run pretty good. You go out here and turn the key on and hold it wide open and try to get to the mouth of each fork. You'll not make it.
No, you won't.
You cannot hold it.
You're going to make it Larry Cassidy's then.
Now you go airborne.
And the one we got out there is a little old four-cylinder, which you'd think wouldn't have a lot of power, but I wouldn't make it to the bridge down here for it to be out of control. Now, I'm telling you, that's the fastest little thing I ever seen. I've never seen nothing like it. But we're in a society different than what this situation was. Now, this lady had a big problem. She had a man problem. I don't know why she couldn't keep him. The Bible doesn't tell us. It doesn't matter. But the fact that Christ goes through a place that, according to the Jewish regulations, Jewish belief, he should not have been there. He should have went over, and I think up to Jordan or over to the coastline and bypassed Samaria, because they just didn't like each other. Now, we shouldn't look at the skin color. We shouldn't look at the situation that they're in. We shouldn't look how they're dressed. We shouldn't look at any of those things. But we should look and see a lost soul if they don't come to Christ. That's the attitude that we need to have. Now, Roy, you do that 100%? No, I don't. And you also have people out here that's begging, that's making a good living by standing beside the road.
Yeah, it's her job.
I heard about a lady one time that come out of her apartment. She had a real nice apartment. She'd carried her old duds with her. She come out dressed real nice. She got into a phone booth. She changed into those old duds and went out and sat on the street corner till she got however much she needed. And I forget what the lady was worth. Now that's the ones you got to watch out for. I don't believe in helping, that we need to help somebody like that. But we don't always know, because we can't tell. We don't see their background like Christ did. Christ knew this lady's background. And he purposely, and we talked about this last time, he purposely went through Samaria for this woman. But he had another reason. Now, I believe when Christ went out to pray, that he asked the Father, and we don't have any prayers that I know of, but you just think about this. Father, what do you want me to do tomorrow? Where do you want me to go tomorrow? And I think God the Father directed the Son, said there's a lady in Samaria there that needs some help, and if you can win her over, she'll go and tell the whole town. And I like what it said in one of the videos there, I'm counting on you. He's counting on us to spread the word. And he's counting on us for the things that he could do miraculously, but he don't want to do them that way. He wants us to be his hands, his eyes, his feet, and his pocketbook. Now you say, ouch. When you talk about pocketbook, but it's part of it.
What we have comes from him anyway.
That's right.
He just wants part of it back.
And I found out the more that he give me, that I give away, he'll replace it. I'll give you one example. I felt like he wanted me to donate, I think it was a couple $100 to a ministry, and I did. And I do some part-time work. At the time, it wasn't my regular job, but there was a tractor trailer come into Huntington that had a problem and needed my help, and the company that I was doing work for. And guess what the bill turned out to be? Just a few dollars over $200. And that's what I was supposed to give that. So God replaced it almost immediately. Now, is that going to happen every time? No, probably not. You don't do that when you go out. I planted the garden a few days ago, and it didn't come up immediately.
Takes time.
Now I can go out and see some evidence of them seeds coming to life and new life. Now, as we go out and talk to people like this woman at the well or anybody else, it could be the president of a bank that we're trying to get a loan from. We could say some little something there. Christ went to the high up like he did Nicodemus. He went to the low down like he did this lady. He didn't call none of them. She even confronted him. You know, you're a Jew. Why are you talking to me? I'm a Samaritan. Now, how'd she know he was a Jew? More than likely the way he was dressed, and more than likely from his speech. She could tell. There's ways that you can tell where somebody's coming from. I got tickled at guy I was working with today. He'd been in the Army. He was in when Vietnam. He fought in Vietnam. I was fortunate the Lord sent me to Germany, and I didn't have to do any of the fighting. But now he was in. He said he's told me all kinds of things. He said I had an AK-47 right at my head, and it wouldn't go off. And he got to the point where he didn't care. He was telling me about a guy today was he had to think about the situation before he'd react. He said, you've got to react now. You ain't got time to think. And he said many times we'd have to go in and hook to his vehicle and pull him out of the fire. Now when you hook the vehicle, you got to physically get out and hook to it. There's no thing that goes out and grabs it like that. So there's times we got to react fast, and then there's times we need to just lay back and say, let me think this situation over a little bit. And to see what I need to do here and listen, take time to listen to the Lord too.
Yeah.
And but this lady's coming to the well. She's got her water pots. She leaves the well with a different kind of water and filled to the brim. She left the well with what she'd been needing for a long, long, long time. Had she had this type of water, she might have only married one man. And it might have worked out, because in a marriage, you've got to work together. You can't take, I got mad today and say, I want a divorce tomorrow. Well, you can't do that. I don't care. If I hear somebody say that they've never argued with their wife or husband, I said, well, you just don't know what the meaning of argument is. If you look up argue in the dictionary, it means any time two of you have a different opinion. That's what an argument is. Now, some of them can get out of hand, or some of them can be calm and get settled without any problem. But I've never seen a couple.
Maybe they don't talk ever.
Yeah, it's the only way. But then it'd be the looks, you know, because you can talk with your looks. We used to have a border collie when we lived up on Craig, and I done this one day. I said the same exact word to her in two different tones. And it was all tail wiggling and everything on one of them, and the other one was, ooh, what have I done, you know? So you talk with your actions a lot of times. Your actions does a lot of speaking. Now, if you try to win somebody to the Lord, now, this lady did not know Christ. She knew about Christ was coming, but she'd never met him. And by the way, this lady was the first one that Christ revealed himself to. He didn't reveal himself to the higher-ups in Israel like Nicodemus. He didn't tell Nicodemus who he was. He told him what he needed to do, but he didn't tell him who he was. This lady is the first one that he's told who he is. I am he. We'll find that out later on in the verses here. And there's just so much in this story. I'll not bring it all out. I'll not even scratch the surface of it. But you just glean on the things that comes out that fits. That's the way I do. And when I hear a message, if I hear something that fits with the Scripture, and I say, well, I didn't see that before. I think Katrina said Sunday morning that the preacher brought out something and said, I never thought about it that way.
Mm-hmm.
You know, that's the things that feed you, especially when you've been in church for a long time. Mm-hmm. It's hard to feed people who've been in church for a long time. It's difficult. You got to come up with some new material somewhere. And it's hard for a pastor, and Roger can tell you amen to this. It's hard to come up with something new for everybody, isn't it? You know, some of you are well versed in the Bible, and you know what it says. You know what it means. And it's hard to come out with something that somebody like us never heard before. It's just difficult to do. But it can be done. The Lord can always bring something out that you have never heard. I don't care if you read John 16 a million times. I guarantee you there's still something in there that you hadn't thought about. And I'm just using that verse as an example. It can be any verse in the Bible. Now, some verses have a lot more meaning and information in, just like this one verse right here. He said, give me a drink. Now, the Scripture says that he was weary with his journey. He was in a physical body, and he did need a drink. He needed a drink of physical water. But I don't know if she ever gave him a drink.
I don't think she did.
Maybe if she, because I think she left her pot when she left. So he
She did.
and drink out of her pot.
Yeah, she dropped her
She
pot.
didn't take her pot with her.
No. She come to the well and with 3 pots and left 2 of them behind. But she got the main one filled.
Yeah.
She got the one filled that will endure, and she'll not get thirsty again because of that. As long as she keeps drinking from that one, and as long as we keep drinking from that one, we'll not get thirsty. Now, I'm not talking about physical thirst. I'm talking about spiritual thirst. And if you hang in there with the Lord, He will feed you what you need when you need it. Mm-hmm. And He'll give you an answer. When the 2-4 first hit me in the mouth, I didn't know. I didn't know what I know now. I didn't know that I was just going to get a scab and a cut and a couple cuts and teeth was all right, and my mouth was numb. I couldn't tell what was going on in it. And I pulled my lip up and seen all the blood on them teeth, and I thought, oh my goodness. And I can tell when this bridge gets a little bit loose because it come loose when they first put it on.
Should have said Margaret did.
And yeah. They've been many asked her, who hit you, you know. Did Margaret do that? No, she was sleeping in the bed when this happened. One of them freaky things I'm going to take time and I'm going to lay that little 2x4 in the same position that it was, and I'm going to whack it on the back with another 2x4 and see what happens, see where it goes.
Well, stand back for heaven's sake.
Well, I'm going to be 8 foot away from it when I do that.
You're like it'll flip the other way and get you again.
Well, if it does, I'll say, how stupid was you? Trying it again. I don't want to be like the guy that was working on a drilling rig, and he accidentally stuck his finger in a fan and cut it off. And they took him to the doctor and got it all sewed up and put back on and everything. And about a month later, somebody asked him, said, how'd you get that finger? How'd that happen? He said, come here, I'll show you. And stuck another finger in that same thing. Don't want to be like that. It makes me mad when I do the same mistake twice. I just don't like to do it. I like to learn from the first one, and the quicker we learn from the first mistake, we'll not try to make that mistake again. Now, it might happen accidentally, but we need to be careful with that. Don't go back for the second dose. I don't want the second dose of that little 1'2" before, I tell you that, because it done a number. But this lady come with a need that she didn't even realize that she had. She had a man problem. And for some reason, she didn't satisfy him. For what reason, I don't know. Have you ever seen anybody like that? They can be gorgeous. Most beautiful woman that ever was. And turn a man off, unreal. I wondered about this for years. My brother-in-law, I think, hit the nail on the head. Why a good-looking woman marries an ugly man? Or vice versa, either one. Could be either way. And here's what he said. He said the good-looking men don't think they can get her or keep her. And the men that don't look quite as good don't care. They're just going to experience what they can. Now, I don't know whether that's accurate or not, but it kind of made sense to me. Because I've seen it many times. I'm thinking, how in the world did that man get that woman, or that woman get that man, you know? You don't know. Sometimes it's personality, sometimes looks has nothing to do with it. But this,
yeah, you got that right.
This lady here, this lady had some kind of a problem that she couldn't satisfy men. Now, I don't know what it was. I have no idea. And by the way, we don't read that she had any children, but she might have had. That might have been the problem. Because a Jewish family, that was top priority. They have children.
Especially sons.
Yeah. Somebody that passed the lineage on, you know. And but we can just think about what her problem was. We don't know. Only thing we know is what Christ told us, that she had 5 husbands and now she's just living. She's living in adultery, isn't she? Mm-hmm. We don't think a lot about that. But I want to ask you something. You're talking about a lot of years with one person. Now you go buy an automobile, will they let you try it out for a year or 2?
No, you're lucky if you get to drive it home.
Right. You're lucky you get to test drive it.
Yeah.
Matter of fact, they want all kinds of information. I went and test drove, and you'll like this. A car not too long ago to see if I really wanted one. And by the way, it gets 78 miles a gallon. And
What kind of car is it?
it's a hybrid.
It's a battery.
It's a plug.
Oh.
It's a plug-in electric. It'll run from electric in your house. It'll run from electric that it generates, and it'll also run from gasoline. So you got all the things. And I got thinking, I've got a backup generator on my house. If they close all the service stations down, I can still get to where I want to go. It'll go 28 miles on a charge, on a full charge, according to them. And I can probably baby it and get more miles out of it than that. But here's a little funny I want to tell you. We was trying this car out, and being in Cincinnati, and the traffic all was zooming like crazy. Mark about had a heart attack when she drove. We stopped, and I turned it over to her, and she drove on in. I'm telling you, they was zooming, it was like catching up. And she said, we wasn't even a place to pull off to change drivers. I mean, I'd be afraid to pull off the road there. But anyway, I wasn't real familiar with the GPS in this particular car, so I asked the lady who was showing it to us, I said, would you please put this address in this GPS so I can know how to get back here? You know, I could have looked it up on the phone, but I wanted to see what it done too. So she had directed us to a restaurant that was closed. We were going to eat, but didn't have to eat right then. And on the way back, this is what tickled me. I had the GPS in the car going. I had the GPS on my phone going. And Margaret sitting in the front seat. I had 3 women tell me how to get back.
Did you get back?
I got back, yeah.
Your women's good.
Yeah. 2 of them got me back there. Margaret didn't have a clue where we was at, and I didn't either. I couldn't have got back. I could have got back by looking up the dealership and doing a trip from where I was to the dealership. I don't think the woman at the well had that problem. She had a need for physical water, and she had a need for spiritual water. And she didn't realize that this day was going to be her day at the well. And you think about your day at the well. When you met the Lord, wherever it might be, your well, my well was a little Baptist church up on 37 going towards Fort Gay. I come from, let me get myself straight here, I was on this side behind the potbelly stove, and they ended up on that side at the altar. And that was my first experience of the Lord right there. And then being the person I was and being the situations I was in, I strayed away. And one Sunday morning at homecoming, I think it was 3rd or 4th pew back here, the building was pretty much packed. And we heard the first preacher, and at that time we had 2 preachers. And when the second one showed up, I pretty much sized him up. I can handle him. I can reject anything he's got to say. But I couldn't reject what the Lord had to say. And a little lady from the back come up the aisle and talked my wife into going to the altar. And I stepped out at the end of the pew. And for some reason, this little lady turned around and said, "You come on too." And I took a step, and buddy, that was all it took. And I ain't been the same since. That was my well. There was 2 wells, really. One I got a little drink from, but I got thirsty again. And this one, when I got a drink of it, it's lasted till now. I thank God for that. God knows where your well is and how to get your attention. He knows what to ask you. He knows what that will work for you. By the way, the devil knows what will work against you too. And quick as that happens, he'll throw the heaviest thing he's got at you, the biggest armor. He wants to get the job done fast, and he wants to annul what happened. I'm sure this woman here stumped her toe, or she done something on her way from the well back to her house or back to town. She went back to town and become one of the greatest witnesses that probably has ever happened in Samaria. She went back and won the whole town, told the whole town, said, "Come see a man." That's what we need to do. We need to go out and say, "Come see this man that I know, that I've experienced, that I've got acquainted with. Come see him. He can take care of anything, any problem that you've got, he can take care of it." Now that should worry about anybody, shouldn't it? But it don't, because they think, well, I've got to not go to the bar that I've been going to, or I got to not go to here or there or somewhere else, and the devil throws something at you. Guarantee it happens every time. He threw the heavy thing at me right after this experience, and it was tough. But I just trusted in the Lord and just kept right on going. Kept on going back to the well. You know, even though he gave her living water, she still had to return to this well for physical water. And by the way, she still had to turn to the living water also. You don't get enough at one time, some people do, to last them for a whole year or 2 years. They can come on Easter or Christmas and get enough to last them. I can't do that. I like this water so well, I come back many times and say, Lord, forgive me. I've messed up. I need your help. I need your guidance. And I've said for a long time, to live a Christian life, you've got to be willing to let Him guide you. Now, I want to give you an example here. Would you rather trust somebody that don't know the future, or trust somebody that knows the future in detail, the fact that they've got every hair on your head numbered? He knows it that well. He knows exactly when you're going to lose one of those hairs. I'd rather trust Him than I would anybody, because He knows the future. And don't want to trust somebody that don't know the future. How many trust the weatherman? How many trust all the news that you hear?
No.
You don't know what agenda is coming in those situations. And I want to just briefly give you a few thoughts on this next verse, verse 8 here. For His disciples were gone away into the city to buy meat. Why? How many disciples did He have?
12.
12, didn't He? Why did all 12 of them have to go to buy something to eat? Was they going to buy that much? It took that many to carry it? By the way, they're going into a city that they're not even supposed to be there, according to the Jewish belief. Jews have nothing to do with Samaritans. They don't like them. Never have, never will. But Christ seen Samaritans as lost souls. And that's the way we need to look at it. Don't look at the person, how they're dressed, what they're doing, and they may be doing some ungodly things. They still got a soul. I told my buddy yesterday, I think it was, I really feel sorry for the devil. He got no chance at all.
No, he didn't.
And he's been where it's good, the best, and he knows where he's going. That's what irritates him. That's the reason he wants to take you and I with him. But we don't have to let him, because we got a higher power on our side. Go ask Big Brother to fight your fight. He loves it. And he wins every time.
Yes, he does.
Wins every time. Okay, let's stand to our feet. Anybody got any announcements or anything? You can call it preaching or teaching, either one tonight. It don't bother me either way. I'll ask you to do this. Pray for me Sunday morning. I'll be filling in for the pastor. So pray that the Lord gives me something that you need and I need. He always gives me something I need. But you may not think, you may think I don't even need that, you know. Well, if you don't need it, you thank God that you don't need it. Okay? So, but I want your prayers anytime that I stand before people, because